All right. Welcome back to the Real Estate Locker Room Show, folks. I'm your host, John Carney. And thank you for thank you for taking the time to tune in to our podcast today. I'm truly grateful for all you return listeners. Your support is truly, what makes this podcast successful. And I know your time's valuable. And I appreciate you spending some of it with us today on the Real Estate Locker Room Show. If this is your first time tuning in to our podcast, welcome. We're definitely going to help you raise the bar today. The goal here is to deliver you some actionable advice on how to elevate your real estate investing game, whatever that might be. So welcome to the show that believes that real estate is a team sport. Today is episode number 91. It's early April 2020, April 7th to be exact. I'm coming at you from my home in Lakewood, Ohio. We're under the lockdown because of COVID-19, but we're going to keep the real estate education rolling with our guest today, special guest from Rhode Island, Mr. Chris Prefontaine. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you having me, especially with everything going on, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like we're both in our home podcasting studios, so we'll see. I warned everyone in the house that these microphones are very sensitive and can hear everything.
Yeah.
Well, I like to, the premise of this show is to explore the intersection of, the competitive real estate game in competitive sports. And, I believe that success leaves clues. For some of us, we have mentors and business partners, and for others, we don't. But we can always look to I can always look to sports and the great achievement and discipline that the top athletes have. And, draw some inspiration and maybe some of their habits will rub off. So with that being said, to stretch out, so to speak, is there a professional athlete or, a past sporting career that's inspired you and helped you along your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I mean, I played hockey since, I don't know what age, 4 or 5 years old. Stopped several years ago because I was getting too old and getting too hurt too many times. But other than that, I played hockey my whole entire life, very competitively.
And that is a fast-moving team sport. So is there what were you, an offensive man or a defensive guy?
Defense.
Right. And so what part of that position could talk to us a little, elaborate a little bit more. We love talking about
that. It'd be a first. You're tying these together, which is pretty cool. Just the competitive nature in general, right? Because it is fast moving, like you said, and it's always competitive. And I wasn't playing for fun. I was playing to win. So same as now. It's so changing so fast. Everything's going so fast, relatively speaking, in the real estate world, especially now, that it's very similar. It's very competitive.
It's interesting. I grew up playing hockey, and maybe there's something amongst hockey players that the non-hockey players can draw. Like when you're on the bench, you've got to rest, but all you want to really be doing is getting out in the game. And it's a team effort, and it's lightning fast. So you've got to be in sync with the people around you to get that competitive advantage and pressure that puck and pressure that goalie and keep the pressure on. So I mean, it's similar. We haven't really delved into hockey yet, but thanks for bringing that up. So you have a long career, and as opposed to running through your knowledge and experience from the beginning to the end, I think it's relevant to talk about the opportunity that you see now, in the real estate market, and help deliver that education about what investors ought to be thinking about today, while we are, in a worldwide pandemic, in every country in the world, in every state in the United States, people are at home, and business owners are worried about their business, and people are worried about paying their mortgages, and landlords are worried about people paying rent. And you got to kind of cut through the noise and say, what am I not seeing? So yeah, what are you seeing?
A couple things. So in our niche, actually in any niche in real estate, I think if you can help, it's how many people you can help. If you can help thousands or tens of thousands of people, then you're going to be successful. It's a win-win. Well, when this hit in March, I said, okay, let's see what happens in April because we had a good March. And lo and behold, in the terms industry, think about it. We're buying on terms and we're selling to buyers that need time. Now more than ever, you have buyers that now have higher criteria for credit scores. They need our help big time. You have jumbo loans pretty much going away. Many banks I've talked to, they're not even touching them right now. That means all our high-end properties are going to need our tenant buyers. That's how we sell them. And then on the seller side, unfortunately, you got people losing jobs and not being able to pay their mortgages, or if they have two homes, can't pay two mortgages. So, John, our property intake, sellers that wanted us to put their homes under contract, went from like an average of 11 or 12 in our community of associates in our own properties to in March being 22, and April will surpass that. Why? Because people need help right now. So more than ever, and I'm super thankful that we're in and grateful that we're in the terms business because who would know? But right now we're helping so many people, and that's a win-win, very healthy win-win.
So I want to have you break down, the terms business, but
Sure.
also, the understanding that, well, maybe we do need to talk about how many years you've been in this business, or the game, the real estate game, as I refer to it, because, you are positioned because of the sweat equity involved, right? The time, the energy, the wins and the losses that kind of brought you to this point. So if you would just elaborate on terms, just to make sure that anyone joining us for the first or second time, we haven't covered this in a while. And then number two, how would someone who's new want to transition into this type of investment vehicle?
Yeah, fantastic. So terms, to keep it kind of high level, 10,000 foot view would be, we buy only, lease purchase, and owner financing. Those are two main ways we buy. There's other methods, but those are two main ways we buy. We sell mainly to buyers who need time. So it turns into a rent to own, but it's true buyers, not renters, that need the extra time, i.e. right now in this pandemic, there's people that need some time to fix their credit or to raise their credit or to raise more money because the banks are being tougher on criteria. So that's how we buy and that's how we sell. So terms just means they don't need banks right away at the beginning of this process. And the term on a house can go anywhere from 3 to 10 years when we buy. Let me say something about lease purchase and owner financing. Lease purchase, our agreements are pre-written, John, with a $10 deposit. So is that a good way for a new investor to find their path into this market? Yeah. And our owner financing deals are all done, at least for us anyway, on homes that are free and clear. Sellers that are free and clear, they have no mortgage, and they're willing to wait for their money, and they take monthly principal payments, no interest, principal only payments. Also a great hedge against any market. So why all this terms talk, though, to your earlier comment? Well, in 2008, I wasn't doing that with the crash. And so, I've been through 3 cycles. So you go through that cycle and you say, okay, what do we have to re-engineer so that we don't ever get into that problem again with personally signing on loans and buying the conventional way? So we just don't deal with banks anymore. We do not sign personally. We do not take out loans, none of that. And so again, who knew what was going to happen? But now if you look at what's going on, I'm super glad that we're in the niche we're in, and I can't wait to help people doing what we just described. I don't know if that helps you.
Well, it does. And I mean, as a real estate entrepreneur, right? Someone who's passionate about this, just really quick, like how many years have you been in real estate as an investment?
You just want me to date myself, right?
No, I want you to kind of show us that it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. This fall, it's 30 years, September, it'll be about 30 years in the biz. And so, yeah, I mean, I say that to say that to go through 3 cycles and then to go through, my business was during 9/11. My business was during my son's coma he was in from a snowboard accident. Like, I've been through stuff. No one's been through this, but certainly we can weather this storm and come out the other side just like we always do. And we've made tweaks along the way to get to this point to do everything on terms. It's funny because my wife said about a year or 2 ago now, said, it took you 50 years to like figure this out. I said, yeah, that's what it takes. It takes time.
It does. It does take time. So but the value, right? Because as you get seasoned through this, and then you look for the value you want to add to both sides of the equation, right? So with terms or with sell it with lease to, sorry,
Lease to own or rent to own, lease purchase, they all mean the same. People
yeah,
use them
lease to own, rent to
interchangeably.
own, in like seller finance or vendor finance, depending on what part of the world you're in.
Right, right.
The value proposition here for the sellers, right, that you've contacted and have a property for you to offer to the buyer, right? Those people are receiving something that they want. I think it's important to understand that you're not really pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. And the buyers, right, you're solving a major problem for them. Good qualified people that want a home, want a family home, want to raise a family, a starter home, but have a reason why they aren't, financeable today by the bank. So I think it's a perfect storm if you're a real estate entrepreneur that really wants to make a mark and help people on both sides. The
sure.
Service that the terms niche, provides for people is fantastic. So do you get into like the nitty gritty of fixing anything up, or you really just act as an intermediary, banking function, correct?
Yeah, it's intermediary when you're in the lease purchase, because we call it a sandwich lease. We're between the buyer and the seller. We control the property though, cloud the title, control it. But when we do an owner financing deal, we own it, right? So what we do to sell it is usually a rent home, but we can owner finance it too, depending on how long our terms are. I'll tell you that in this market, the sellers now, like you flipped a switch, know that they're going to have to go longer terms because there's uncertainty. So, my son-in-law, Zach, called me earlier and said, hey, I think we got another deal this week. It's a 10-year term. Well, that probably would have been a 3 or 4 year discussion 2 weeks ago. But now people are more flexible. And yes, you are helping them. It's like a major 3-way win. Us, the buyer, and the seller versus a lot of different niches that are out there without calling anyone out on that. It's very healthy niche that we're in right now. And it has been.
I agree. And this really came to light, this strategy. I'm not an expert in this strategy, nor have I ever partaken in this strategy, but met a lot of people that were doing this, during it, in the famous 08, 09 and through that last cycle. And they approach this from the service approach rather than the what's in it for me approach.
Yeah.
And when new investors out there that want to get into this business, that especially now, right now, if you're sitting at home and you've been furloughed or laid off and you're looking for something, there's just so much opportunity to educate yourself. So speak to the folks out there that, this is going to be a game changing event, for a lot of people. And there's going to be an opportunity for people like yourself to jump in and help coach people into a whole new career path, or a whole new way of earning an income, supporting themselves, their loved ones. So speaking to our current situation, what advice do you have for folks?
Yeah. So you said something at the very beginning. You said success leaves clues, and you were relating it to the sports, but I agree wholeheartedly regarding the business too. So I'm not so naive to think we're the only ones that know how to master the terms, but do find someone that has gone through at least 1 or 2 cycles, that is currently doing what you want to do. So if it's terms, great. There are myself and other people out there. We happen to come from we're a family business. It's myself, my son-in-law, my son, our whole family's involved. So it is more of a family feel for those that like that. And that's who we tend to attract, those that appreciate and like that and maybe even want to build a family business themselves. And the best way is then to start digging in free. We have free stuff on purpose. I want people to say, by the time they get to the decision, I want them to say, look, I've looked at enough. I want that niche. Not, I'll try it and then not like it. So they can go to YouTube. They can go to our website. All that stuff's free webinar. And then once they decide, I'm happy to have a free strategy call with them if they just say that they heard you and I chatting on your show. And then they can explore it further one-on-one with me. We don't do that all the time. I'm happy to do it with everything going on.
That's awesome. Like, what do you expect if you're really pursuing this as far as, you've got to learn, right? It's like anything. You can't just say, you've got to seek the expert advice. You're clearly an expert in the terms area of real estate investing. And so like, what does the day-to-day look like? I mean, how many hours a week are you putting in? It doesn't mean you become a real estate investor, you do a few deals, and the luxury cars start showing up.
Yeah, no, I'm the complete opposite of that, by the way. Good thing you brought this up. So there's too many people that they mismanage expectations, but not their fault. They have people on YouTube and on TV commercials saying, get rich tomorrow. I will tell you that if you're willing to give this a 3-year blinders on window, 36 months, if you want to do that and you attach to a coach, myself or someone else, then you'll have a great experience. And everybody goes, well, I can do that. Well, harder said than done. You got to get the blinders on. And then when all the curveballs hit, you got to stay with the blinders and you got to listen to everything that your mentor, coach, or sounding board is telling you to do. As far as the week to week, day to day, depends on their goals, right, John? I mean, if they have huge expectations, we have people in our community now, students, that were kind of teetering and then just lost their job. Like we just had a big event last week that we had to turn to virtual. And during that event, 3 or 4 people lost their jobs and said, I'm in full-time, full bore. Before that, they were teetering. So they'll go 30, 40 hours weeks now. Prior to that, they might have been doing 8, 10-hour weeks, part-time. Most of the database we have is part-time until this happened. And so now they see this as kind of a sign like, okay, I'm hitting it heavy, I'm going full-time. So that's kind of an open-ended question depending on the individual. But part of what I can do in the strategy call is say, what are your goals? What are you willing to put in? Let's make sure those are in sync so you don't start off, setting yourself up to fail.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the question I just asked and the way I frame that is based on I think it's just good information to have out there, right? I don't believe in there was a time when I was younger, before the gray hair, where I did believe you could potentially, work a few hours a day.
You and me both.
4-hour work week,
Yeah.
I love Tim Ferriss, but I mean, that's like the best title you could ever come up with.
It is a good title. He works 1 million hours a week, but it's a good title.
He works 80 hours a week. That guy's an animal. Yeah. All these guys do. I mean, it's just, but when you find something that you like doing and you start, wanting to set benchmarks for yourself and raise your own bar and your own expectations, well, then, it's not work. You're just having fun and the money
right.
comes on. And that's hard for people that are struggling right now to understand. But, what you do write down and want to do will manifest itself with some discipline, but, not trying to, go out on a pontification there, but, so that's why I asked the question now when we're talking to experts like yourself is to set an expectation, because self-storage or mobile home parks might be more attractive than this opportunity. And we're really trying to give everybody out there who finds the show the opportunity to dig into everybody's area of expertise. Well, perfect. If we're going to get some links and we're going to get in all your information here at the end and have it up on the show notes. But, when you landed on this as a family business on the term section, give a couple of stepping stones in your past that sort of got you to where you are now. And you seem very comfortable, in where you landed.
I got to tell you, there was no pre-thought. Like people say, how'd you get the family? How'd that grow? Did you outline it and map it out? I wish I could tell you I did. It kind of organically happened. I started it. My son, Nick, came on. Then my daughter and son-in-law were looking for a change from the hospitality and bartending industry. So it wasn't pre-planned on that front. As far as before that, what caused it, John, it would be most definitely one deciding factor, and that was the '08 crash. There's a whole chapter in my book that talks about it because I'm candid. I want people to understand the good, the bad, all the challenges. And so that caused us to re-engineer what we do. To the point where I almost didn't go back into real estate. So I'm not doing this again. It was, my credit was good. So I went out and took out a bunch of loans and bought conventionally like people do. And then when the crash happened and the market lost 1/3 or 2/3 in some places, who do you think they came knocking on? They came knocking on my door. So I said, I'm never doing that again. So that whole thing caused us to re-engineer and go into terms. And now just to give you a fast forward and for the listeners to understand what I'm saying, we control probably 50 or 60 properties now at any one time, our family company, just in 3 states. But our students do another 15 or 20 a month that we also do with them. We revenue share with them and help them and do deals with them. That's a lot of real estate. And not one of those, not one, is anyone signed on personally. That's a big deal. That's a low stress factor compared to signing personally with banks. If you even have the credit to do that. So there's a big difference in this niche, big difference.
Yeah. I have to imagine right now that, if for folks that there are folks out there that have tenants that are unemployed and are going to have, hard time paying, and there's going to be forgiveness only to a point. And, we have we have a family business, and we're not even a huge company, but I mean, the time and effort it took to get our SBA PPP loan application.
Yeah, us too. Crazy.
Done right. And it was a whole week just vanished with that.
Same here.
On top of writing SOPs and making sure we're looking after not only our staff and our team, our team in multiple locations, but also the residents that live with us. So it's almost like there's a lull here. I'm sure everybody in our business is looking on their collections and coming up with strategies, but it is crazy times. So talk about you're a 3-time author, which is awesome. And then your business is Smart Coach. You want to give everybody just a highlight reel about what you're up to?
Yeah. So as we said earlier, we do the deals ourselves. We're still in the trenches. I think it's critical to work with someone that's in the trenches. And then we teach others to do it around the country. They can partner with us or do it on their own, different arrangements. If they just go to smartrealestatecoach.com, they can start looking into freebie stuff. If you want to give your audience with everything shut down, I usually say a hard copy, and we usually mail it, but I can give them an electronic copy. If they just say they heard us on your show, I can give you the link for that if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, if you send it over to me, we're trying to push out our shows quickly, and we'll get that in all the right places for you.
Awesome. I'll get that off to you.
Besides Smart Coach and books. All right. So like when we kind of, I'm going to pivot. A 3-time author would lead me to believe that you also read books. Is there a book out there that especially maybe relevant to the times we're living in right now, which I will classify as uncertain and scary for a lot of people? Is there a book that you can point people to that you've read that you pick this up and it'll help you get through it?
Well, that's a good question, because I always look at, okay, what am I reading like for the next quarter relative to what I'm trying to do? Is it sales driven? Is it chaos driven? What is it? So obviously no one predicted this, but as I think back, there's a cool book. It's a thick book. It's by Ray Dalio called Principles. I hadn't read it right now or with this in mind. Nobody would have, of course. But if I think back, he does some really cool things in there, some challenging things that he's gone through, and talks about how to handle chaotic times, coincidentally. That's a good one. Measure What Matters is a good one. It's nothing to do with chaos, but it has to do with running things tightly, and how Google and a lot of the big players built their cultures. It wasn't like by mistake or by luck. It was very pointed how they did it. And we operate under a lot of those principles. So those are the 2 that come to mind without thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, at my office in the office building, I have Principles. I haven't cracked it yet. It's a big, thick, heavy book. Did you read it?
It is. Yeah, I did. I actually read it, and then I did the audibles because it's so much stuff in there. So while I was working out, I just did the audibles again.
I follow Ray's book, or I follow the Principles and Ray on Instagram, and so
nice.
You get the principles, and I mean, I started a whole file for the.
It's crazy. It's good stuff.
Awesome. Well, that's great. We'll get those both. Measure What Matters, and then Principles. Is there like a pro tip you could share, that, wake up in the morning maybe, or start your week out like this? Is there something that's just worked for you that you'd like to share with the audience?
I just think routine is good no matter what. It doesn't make my routine better than anyone else's, but in the morning, if you're going to start your day, in my case, working out, meditating, and or journaling. That whole process is not long. It's not daunting because journaling could take 5 minutes, just gratitude. But do that without jumping on email and all the other crap that comes at you. Just like, don't touch that stuff. Just start your day focused with intentional and then get off with it. That's just what I do.
Lock up the tech, right? Lock up the tech. It's challenging since we don't have an alarm. It's like phone alarm, right? And we keep talking about buying an alarm clock, but haven't done it for years now. So if I don't have to wake up at a certain time to go work out, which I'm a little bit more casual with now, working from home in lockdown. Yeah. I just don't bring the phone upstairs anymore. And it does get turned off, everything except for the alarm. Well, that's great. Is there an obstacle that you've encountered along the way, like one deal, one business point, or something other than a big financial crash like in 08 or this pandemic, but something on a smaller level that you've taken away one lesson that you learned from and think that every real estate investor could benefit from hearing about?
I just watching my students and thinking about my own stuff. Now that you said that, I'm thinking of things like slowing it down especially when you're new. When I say slowing it down, I mean, when you get your first deal or two or three, I notice this with our students, they want to like jump on it ASAP before they start to negotiate the right way or listen to their coach. Just slow it down, because when you slow it down, you're not chasing deals and the right deals find you. That's all I could say. Cautious, slow down. Even though we're in crazy times, deals are going to come at you. Take it slow. There's no rush. There's no rush on your end. There might be on the seller's end. Just take it and control it.
I love that. That is, that's great advice. I think that's great advice for whatever business you're in. Definitely great advice if you're going into a new venture in real estate. But I mean, right now in the world we're living in, everyone needs to slow down and unplug a little bit and plan for what's coming. Is there anything in particular you're planning for as we kind of run through April and into May, June with the uncertainty ahead?
Yeah, we're actually we call it doubling down. Literally, like my son-in-law and I said, okay, let's just literally on Saturdays, we are going to double or triple our calls with sellers, and we're going to double or triple our efforts with our students, because I think there's the fight and flight thing, right? From everybody talks about fight or flight, the two responses, but there's really a third one going on now. It's freeze. And if you freeze, you're done. That's the worst thing you could do right now in this market. So we're getting more aggressive and doubling down so that when it passes, it will, that we've got this reservoir of deals and reservoir of successful students all marching together. That's what we're doing instead of freezing.
I love it. Well, Chris, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day, especially with the double down approach, and and sharing some amazing, tips and sharing your insight into the terms business with the audience. Where can people find you if they want to contact you direct to carry on the conversation, or they're more interested in learning about, Smart Coach?
They can go to smartrealestatecoach.com. If they want a strategy call, and I literally haven't given this out on the show, they can go to smartrealestatecoach.com/strategy call. Just put in there that they heard you and I talking on your show, so I know it wasn't random, and I'm happy to chat with them. And then I'll get you the link later for the free book for all your listeners.
That's fantastic, and thanks. That's a generous offer, especially, your time is valuable and you're definitely playing it forward, and it's much appreciated from my end. And please, if you're thinking about getting into this type of business and you don't know where to start with Chris, because he's a seasoned pro, and you need a guiding light and a sounding board, I suppose. It's always good to have a sounding board to help slow you down.
Appreciate that, John.
Well, there you have it, folks. We're going to wrap this up. This is episode 91, or it's going to be available on johncarneyonline.com/ET91. And that's where you're going to find all the show notes and relative links to today's conversation with Chris Prefontaine. He's going to provide some links to his ebooks and to contact him through Smart Real Estate Coach. And, you can tee up one of those calls. If you like what this show is all about, I'd be super, super stoked if you would like us on whatever podcasting medium you're tuned into today, whether that's on YouTube or iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play. We're in all those places, and you definitely know that since you're tuning into us there. But that's how other like-minded real estate investors, just like yourself, are able to access Real Estate Locker Room Show and, great conversations we have with experts like Chris. Well, until next week, folks, work hard, play hard, raise the bar. I'm your host, John Carney, and, let's get it done. Thanks for taking the time out of your day again, Chris, to join us on the Real Estate Locker Room.
Very welcome. Pleasure.
Awesome.